It's a great place for ideas, but otherwise pretty wild and woolly. Stay tuned. I'll read you a few tweets, and much worse, a few responses.
You wanted real talk, and this is where you'll hear it. Uninhibited by the toxic influences of cancel culture, unvarnished and unfettered, unencumbered by the censorship of traditional radio, uncontaminated by big media interests.
And now, Sherman Unlimited.
It seems like Twitter is an outlet where people with COVID derangement syndrome gather. I'm not saying COVID is simple, nor that you shouldn't take caution, but I am blown away by the number of crazies who want the government to be responsible for everything and who think we're playing with fire by not reimposing mask mandates and not thinking about fall and winter lockdowns. Lockdowns, are you kidding me? I'll give you a few examples from Twitter and then I'll chat about it. I like this one from a doctor. Biden, Fauci, Trudeau, : You won't get COVID if you're vaccinated. Biden, Fauci, Trudeau, : I got COVID. Here's another. I had a cold a couple of weeks ago. My mom kept asking if I took a test. I said no. I don't care. Why does it matter what it is? It's literally irrelevant at this point, COVID or not. So why does anyone still test? And one more. COVID has fully convinced me that we would still be working during a zombie apocalypse. Response to that one? Nah. In a zombie apocalypse, all bets are off. It's everyone for themselves. Survival of the fittest situation. I would have preferred zombies to COVID. That would have solved a lot of problems. And here's another. 40% of our kids are zombies right now, but the important thing, we will not go remote. Here's an interesting tweet from a well-known American news person. Think of the propaganda feat to convince so many people who had so many shots that when they get sick anyway, the shots worked and they would have gotten sicker without them, even though most people don't get very ill with COVID anyway. Comments? Here's a doctor's response to that. If you've been going maskless indoors this summer, it's time to reevaluate. Cases and hospitalizations are going up in so many communities in the U.S. and Canada. Want to avoid getting sick and risking being robbed of your health via long COVID? Wear a mask when you're sharing the air. Okay, I could have given some of the real nut bars on this feed a little bit of a public airing. Honestly, Twitter scrolls, and I always think of toilet paper roll when I scroll it. Here's the COVID skinny from me. No advice, no medical knowledge expressed or implied, but I do understand people and I understand mass psychology, and I think we're about to see a lot of COVID again, but not the early stage ones. The big one is Omicron BA.5. Hugely contagious, but mostly not lengthy, nor requiring special treatment. I think this is the one most of us can expect to get, regardless of precautions. Some of us have had it already or will get it and not even know it. Others will get it, and the symptoms will be a headache, a scratchy throat, coughing. It'll last a few days, leave you tired for a week or two, and that's it. And a few, often with comorbidities, will actually need professional treatment in hospital, starting to sound a lot like other illnesses to me. I don't believe governments, generally speaking, I don't believe them. I don't believe that they will do very much more than recommend masking and staying away from crowded places. That's what I think we're going to hear. And I don't think that's limited to one particular place. Wherever you're listening to me, that's what you're going to hear, or less. I don't believe any government will resort to heavy or even light lockdowns anymore. COVID may be something you fear or don't go looking for, but it's like going for a walk in the woods and knowing you don't want to encounter a bear. COVID can kill you at worst, and so can a bear. But the likelihood of either happening is statistically minuscule. Bears aren't going extinct, and COVID is not about to evaporate. From the time COVID appeared, I know I went through vinyl gloves to pump gas and washing down our grocery deliveries and wearing a mask to go get my mail, washing my hands with the happy birthday song going on in my head 20 times over. That's done, and it's finished for many or most people, certainly myself included. And I am worried about getting sick from COVID, just like I'm worried about cancer or muscular dystrophy or bears in the woods. All of these things can hurt you or they can kill you. You just can't wave a wand and make them go away. You also can't appear to some government to do more. What do you expect? Governments force people to take the vaccine, or where they didn't or couldn't, they practically begged. Where I live in central Canada, we have one of the highest ratings in the world for the percentage who went out and got the shots, the first 2 shots. A bit lower, noticeably, for the initial booster, quite a bit lower for the one they want us to take now, the second booster, or the so-called 4th shot. And here's why. The vaccines were and are a moving target. It kind of went like this. Thank God there's a vaccine for this plague. We can eliminate it. Then we need enough people to take the vaccine so we can achieve herd immunity. Then there are a few breakthrough cases. And more recently, take the vaccine because it'll diminish the severity of COVID if and when you get it. Now, it is as routine for fully vaxxed and boosted people to contract COVID as for the unvaxxed, except now more vaxxed than unvaxxed seem to get COVID. Take a look at the numbers for yourself. We all make decisions in and about our lives. I've had so many friends and relatives get this thing and not really suffer much, if at all, that I'm stopping the train personally. I have booster number 1. That's as far as I'm going. No advocacy. Do what's right in the language of today. You do you. I think it's time to accept this illness as a fact of life because that's what it is. The people of Congo accept Ebola, but although it's a fact, it doesn't change an iota of how they live their lives. And Ebola is extremely serious, about 50% mortality. So our society has COVID as a co-inhabitant of planet Earth. It's going to stay that way with the precautions you think are appropriate. Live your life, you do you. And do not ask governments to impose grand schemes on us. They mostly don't work, but now people just plain don't want them.
Sherman Unlimited. In your face.
So as you know, we have American subscriber listeners to Sherman Unlimited, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that I live down there for about 5 months each year, and I know some people. I've been hearing that when you get the check or the bill, as you prefer to call them, in the many numerous restaurants down there now, there's an extra line on the bill, and it's called the temporary inflation fee. Requires no explanation. That's what it is. Anyone seen that up here in Canada? I haven't. I sure have seen higher prices, really higher prices. But Canucks will no more label something as a temporary fee than they'll refill your Coke or coffee cup at no charge. That's unfair. Many restaurants in Canada actually will dish out the coffee at no extra charge, not much else. In the USA, most places see an empty cup or glass, it's removed and then returned filled. And there's no extra charge. You order a Coke, you pay for a Coke, even if you drink 4. You can also bet that when inflation is controlled, the Americans will dump the so-called temporary inflation fee and return prices to something that allows for the business to be profitable. My guess is, let's say a sandwich was $7 last year. The temporary fee may now be making it $9, and by year end, there's no more temporary fee. The menus are reprinted, and the sandwich will probably wind up at $8 as a permanent price, semi-permanent price. In Canada, if the sandwich was $7, there's no temporary fee attached, but somehow the sandwich has now become $10 permanently until the end of the year when it'll settle in at $11. Oh, Canada. And on the subject of Florida, Hallandale Beach on the Atlantic coast, if you know it. If you don't, just north of Fort Lauderdale, has acquired 13 new police cars. And what's so special about that? Well, they're Teslas. They want to look green to the public. They want to save money since fuel has now become extremely expensive. I'm wondering how temporary that'll be. Anyway, think about it. Police cars are out driving day and night, 7/24, 365. Gas bills must be ridiculous. Teslas, I don't think of them as improving our carbon footprint because of what it takes to construct and replace those batteries. But they sure don't spew anything out into the air through the rear. No exhaust pipe on an electric vehicle. Hallandale Beach, congratulations.
Nobody is getting canceled anymore. Not around here.
More in a moment.
This one's a little strange, and it's why I'm including it here. Monkeypox. You've heard about it. Monkeypox. The World Health Organization, or WHO, as they call it for short, has gotten into the act again by declaring monkeypox a public health emergency of international concern. Okay, why? It's been around for decades. It's unlikely to kill anyone, except sometimes in Africa, where it's endemic and not news. A global emergency is WHO's highest level of alert before you get the pandemic, but the designation does not necessarily mean a disease is particularly transmissible or lethal. Similar declarations were made for the Zika virus, that was in 2016 in Latin America, and the ongoing effort to eradicate polio, in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2014 Ebola outbreak in West Africa. It's been recorded in this is monkeypox now. It's been recorded in 74 countries, and total infections worldwide are about 16,000 cases outside of Africa. That is in countries like ours, where we ordinarily don't record any cases of monkeypox. The transmission method is men who have sex with other men, and notably with multiple partners. That's 99% of all the cases outside Africa. Bottom line here is, this is not something that you have to worry about unless you happen to fit that model. And if you do, goodness knows, take precautions. We've been this road before. And by the way, smallpox vaccine works on monkeypox, and death is extremely unlikely. If you get it, you're going to have some painful lesions, and then it'll just go away. This is, at this point, really not a story. I put it on here today because it's information to assuage the fears of any of you who think this is, oh my God, another plague coming and a reason to get freaky about all of the COVID measures that we had and talking about putting them in again. No. Vaccines work as they are established in this particular incidence, and incidence is low. Transmission is sexual, male to male, monkeypox. Am I the only one who worries about who is in who and why who highlights this stuff? Sounds like who's on first. I'm Peter Sherman. Postscript on the story that I did last week about our buried riches in Canada and our inability to realize on the wealth because of pipeline halts and plain old crap that opponents of such things throw at government and others. Right now, Canada is, believe it or not, the world's fourth largest producer and third largest exporter of crude oil, fifth largest producer of natural gas, and sixth largest exporter of natural gas. It's pretty high on the list. And if we can be that high on the list, now imagine what we could do if we were ready to drill where we find it, extract it, and have the pipeline capacity to ship it wherever it needs to go. Typically, we're talking about both eastern and western ports or over the border into the United States. And it is so needed in other spots around the world. For future generations, it is absolutely imperative that we do these things. I know. Some of you say, shut up, Peter, fossil fuels, they're over. That's bullshit. And they're going to be around for decades to come. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to admit it or not, whether you want to fight with me or not, they're going to be around for decades to come. And meanwhile, we deny ourselves what God buried under Canada. And our federal leadership needs new tools to overrule intransigent provinces, indigenous groups, environmental warriors, and all of that assorted distraction. Sorry to all that I'm offending, but the needs of the many have always outweighed the wants of the few. To me, can you imagine if we could inject another $12 billion per year into our economy just by getting needed pipelines built? Make the deals, build the infrastructure, and ship. And if you need to legislate to do it, then legislate. Tell those who don't like it to move to the Arctic and live in a tent for the winter before making pronouncements on what the rest of us should or shouldn't do energy-wise. I'm Peter Sherman.
Sherman Unlimited.
Let Peter know what's on your mind. Drop him an email. info@petersherman.com.
Find future episodes wherever you find your favorite podcasts. So if you like what you heard, tell a friend. If you really liked it, tell 3 friends. If you really hated it, tell 3 enemies. We'll talk again soon.